Hi everyone, thanks for checking out another video. Today we are finally talking Incubus Summer Romance, the solo section. Apologies to anyone that has been waiting for this one. It's only taken me a year and a half to get around to doing it, so I do apologise. I'm going to go through the entire solo and I'm going to break it down into chunks for you guys, so it's hopefully a bit more manageable to get your heads around. Before we get on with the teaching of this solo, let me just have a little caveat here. So obviously the original was done on a saxophone. I have tried my best to kind of incorporate as many notes as I can figure out from the solo, so it's not going to be exactly the same as the sax solo, it's kind of my interpretation of it. If you're interested in the gear that I'm using for this video, everything will be in the description if you're curious. So what guitar I'm using, what amp, all of that good stuff. So without me waffling on anymore, let's get straight into the tutorial. Right, so this solo is actually utilizing the B minor pentatonic, what I call position 1, I think lots of people call position 1, and it strays into a tiny bit of position 2 as well. So if you know this shape, starting at the 7th fret, very common shape, and also a bit of that second position there. So we're only covering 6 frets and there are some extra notes as well. So although you can think of it as B minor pentatonic, it also adds in the major second and the major 6th as well, which makes this a B Dorian scale. Adding those notes in, we've got a 6th here, a major second, we've also got a 6th here, major 6th and a major 2nd here, and we've also got a 6th up here that we will be utilizing throughout this solo as well. So that is the scale that we're playing with, but obviously we're playing over a few frets span and things like that. Now, if everything I've just talked about is new to you, don't worry too much, just concentrate on the B minor pentatonic part. I think most people are probably familiar with that, and it's a good way of kind of getting yourself into this solo, so don't worry too much about note names and things at this moment in time. So what I've done here, I'm going to split the whole solo over 10 chunks. And hopefully this way you can learn one chunk, get that under your fingers and move on to the next one. And if then there is a particular tricky sequence that you are struggling with, you can always come back to that chunk and focus on that part before kind of stitching everything together. So let's start with the very first part, which is kind of is running up the scale and finishes on this major 2nd note up here. So we've got this. That's our very first part. So again, if you think B minor pentatonic, you are literally just running up from 7 to 10, so first finger, little finger. This is all alternate picked as well. Then from 7 on the A string back to the 10 on the low E. And that cycle repeats. So every time you play 2 notes on one string, you're then going up a string to come back down again, and then 2 notes on one string, up, back, 2 notes, up, back, 2 notes, up, and then we sort of come up to this point here. So slowly through. And then when you play the 2 notes on the G here, we're immediately jumping over to the 10 on the B string here I'm using my 3rd finger and then rolling down to the high E string on the 10th fret before finally coming back 1 fret to that major 2nd note on the high E on the 9th fret. So slowly once again. And then you can kind of give that a little bit of vibrato while you kind of go into the next part or the next chunk. So from there, we have that little phrase, which then, this is where it's coming over into kind of your 2nd position of the minor pentatonic. So we're going from 10 to 12 on the B string before hopping back to the 9 on the E string and a hammer on and pull off to the 10th and back to the 9. Then we've got this nice little rundown, which starts with your little finger on the 13th fret, and it's a chromatic rundown. So you're playing, literally pulling off each one of those frets to get until you get to the 10th fret on your 1st finger. And then sliding back to the 9 on the B string there. So, and then we're coming up to the G string here, and we're going from 11 to 13 before coming to 10, 12 on the B string, and then sliding back down to the B at the 9. So all that together. Again, you can give that some vibrato at the end. So that is chunk 2 that we're finishing on there. Then we come up to the G string again, and we're going from 11 down to 9, down to 7, and then back to 11, pull off to 7, and then on to 9 at the D string, and then 9 at the G to 6 on the G, and then back up to 7 on the D string. Before playing this. That's where we're going to end that chunk. So all that put together. So once you've played that note on the D string on the 7th fret, you then start on the B string at the 9th fret, and I am keeping my first finger placed on the 7th fret on the B string, literally sliding up and pulling off. Slide up, slide back, pull off, and hammer back on. So you can see this finger is moving with it, but I'm not pressing down here, it's just lightly resting so it can slide up with my 3rd finger. And the little chromatic run down from 9, 8, 7 on the G. And then we're playing 7 on the B, rolling your first finger onto the 7 at the G, 9 on the D string, roll your finger down to the 9 on the G string. So all together. So moving on to chunk 5, from your, we've got so that starts with, so pull off from 9 to 7 on the G, grab the B string at the 10th fret, and then back to the 9 at the G. I like to give that a little, kind of a little quarter sort of half bend. Then we're playing the 7 on the G once, twice on the 9 at the G, and then pulling back off to the 7 on the G. So little rest there. Then we play the 7 on the G, and we come up to the B string at the 10th fret before coming back down to the 9th fret on the G again. And then we play another kind of slur again. I'm keeping this finger planted down but lightly resting so it can slide forwards with my 3rd finger. This time we're sliding up and back, so sliding up to the 10th fret on the G, sliding back to the 9, pulling off, and then hammering down onto the 9th on the D string. So, and then we go 9, 7 on the D, and then 9, 7 on the G. And then again we have this sort of rest there. All of that put together up to that point. Then we slide from 7 to 9, then 7 back to 9 picked. Then we come back to the 6th fret on the D before coming back up to the 9. And here we're just kind of playing from 6 to 9, 7 to 9, 6 to 9. So before then finally finishing on the 9 on the A string. So we're on to chunk 6, which I think is probably the hardest part of this whole solo. And you've got this chromatic run up and run down before we come up to this big kind of G major arpeggio shape that we run up and down. So after you've run up all of that part, you've got and it's played very fast, this part, so. So we're going from 6, 7, 8, 9, again, all picked on the D string. Same again on the G. And then once you run back down, you don't pick the 9 again, you come straight back to 8, 7, 6, then 9, 8, 7, 6 on the D. So 8, 7, 9 on the G, 9, 8, 7, 6 on the D string. Then you're sliding from the 9 to the 10 on the A string, which is your G root note, and that's with my little finger. Come underneath that with your third finger on the D string at the 9th fret, and then bar across the G and the B string on the 7th fret, and you get, that's your G major chord there. And then you're literally sort of almost like a sweep pick, running your pick back down as you then hammer on that 9 and that 10 where you started off. So you slide up, play the 9, play the 7 on the G and 7 on the B, and then run your pick back through to complete that. Then we're grabbing the 9 and pulling off. So 9, pull off to 7, grab the B on the 10, back to 9 on the G, play the 7 at the G, and then roll down to the 7 on the D. And that is the end of chunk 6. Like I say, I think that is probably the hardest part altogether. So once again. So after finishing on there, we go into so that is simply, we're sliding kind of from nowhere up onto the 7 on the G and the B before you grab the high E on the 9th fret and then the 10 at the B. And this quite bluesy rundown. Like I said at the beginning, this is obviously played on the saxophone, and I'm definitely not playing every single note that's being played, so this is kind of my best guess at the run that's played here. So there I'm playing high E on the 7, then picking the 10 at the B and pulling off to the 7 on the B twice, and playing 9 to 7, 9 to 7 with 2 pull-offs. So after those pull-offs, then pull off to 7, play the 7 3 times and finish with a hammer on the D at the 9th fret. And then we rest again there before we go into chunk 8. So then we're into chunk 8 and we have so that is 7 to 9 on the D string, then 9 to 6 on the G, and then 7, 9 going from D to the A string. So hammer on, pick, pick, and then pick, pick. We linger on there with some vibrato before simply just running back up the scale. 2 notes on the A string, so 7 to 9, 7 to 9 on the D, 7 to 9 on the G. Then we go into chunk 9, which is another kind of bluesy lick. So we're picking the high E, then picking the 10 and pulling off to 7 on the B, before then re-picking at the 7 on the E, and again rinse and repeat. So, and then once you've done that twice, we grab the 9th fret on the G string before going back to the B at the 10, a little slide from the 6th fret on the B to the 7 on the B, and then 9, 7 on the G. And again, lots of vibrato there. And then our final chunk, chunk 10, is a little kind of sweep pick part where we slide up from 7 to 9 on the A string. Then we bar across all the other strings from the D string down on the 7th fret and sweep through those. And then very last of all, just as you play that high E on the 7, hammer on to the high E on the 9 and bend up slightly and finish with that. So bend up, and once you get to what kind of note sounds good to you, you can just let that bend go and kind of mute the strings. At least that's what I like to do. And then we finish on our big B minor 7 chord. Quickly turn off any other effects that you've got on, so I've got delay and reverb on obviously, and then put your wah back on for that main chorus riff and you are done. So there you go guys, if this video has helped you, hit that like button. It helps me to appease the YouTube algorithm and hopefully push this video out to more people who might be interested in watching it. If you'd like to support my channel in any way, which would be hugely appreciated, there are different ways to do that and you can check that out in the description of this video as well. Thank you so much for watching this one. Now go and play your guitar.